"Mitchell, you're a disgrace to this uniform," the drill sergeant roared, while muffled laughter spread through the ranks at her latest mistake. At Parris Island, recruits were broken down and rebuilt into Marines, but Private Sarah Mitchell seemed beyond saving. She missed every target, stumbled through drills, and became the platoon's running joke. Her discharge papers were already signed, a humiliating end to a dream she once carried with pride. But just as everything was slipping away, something unexpected happened. A Navy SEAL commander appeared, studied her with unsettling precision, and handed her a folded document sealed in red wax. In that instant, Sarah realized her failures weren't the full story. What she held wasn't a dismissal, it was a combat order, and it would change her life forever. Parris Island was designed to break people. Everyone who arrived there knew it. The air itself seemed to press down on new recruits, thick with humidity, discipline, and the unspoken message: if you can't endure this place, you don't belong here. For Private Sarah Mitchell, the brutal truth of Marine Corps training wasn't just a challenge. It was a nightmare unfolding day after day. From the very first week, Sarah stood out, but not in the way anyone wanted to. While others began adapting to the rhythm of early mornings, endless drills, and punishing expectations, Sarah faltered. Her boots never seemed polished enough. Her uniform, though clean, never seemed as crisp as those around her. And when it came to physical training, she lagged behind, arms shaking on push-ups, lungs burning during runs, her body betraying her at every turn. But the worst failures weren't physical. They were the visible mistakes that left her humiliated in front of her platoon. At the rifle range, she missed target after target. While other recruits slowly tightened their groupings, Sarah's shots scattered wide, punching holes in the white paper far from the black center. Each miss echoed louder than the rifle's crack, followed by muffled laughter or sharp sighs from the recruits beside her. "Mitchell, you're a disgrace to this uniform," one drill sergeant barked, voice cutting across the field like a whip. "I've seen blind men with steadier aim." Sarah's face flushed, but she gave the same robotic response every struggling recruit learns to rely on. "No excuse, sir. No excuse. No defense. Just shame." In the barracks, whispers followed her. Recruits joked that she wouldn't last the month. Some avoided partnering with her in exercises, fearing she'd drag them down. A few went further, openly mocking her whenever she stumbled, as if her failures somehow validated their own progress. By the third week, her reputation was sealed. Sarah Mitchell wasn't just struggling, she was the platoon's embarrassment. The humiliation hit hardest during drill practice. While dozens of recruits moved in perfect rhythm, rifles snapping up in unison, Sarah's timing faltered. She stumbled, corrected, stumbled again. The synchronized clicks and stomps were broken by her mistakes, and every eye turned to her as if she had single-handedly ruined the entire formation. The drill sergeant's fury was immediate. "Mitchell, you want to make us all look like fools? Step forward." With sweat dripping down her temples, Sarah obeyed, stepping out in front of the group while the rest of the platoon looked on. The sergeant circled her like a predator, voice low but sharp enough for everyone to hear. "Tell me, Mitchell, why are you here? Because I sure as hell don't see a Marine in front of me. All I see is wasted space." Sarah kept her gaze forward, jaw clenched, hands trembling against her thighs. "I want to serve my country, sir." The sergeant's laugh was bitter. "Want? Want doesn't qualify you to carry a weapon. Competence does. And right now you're showing me none." The words lodged deep in Sarah's chest. They weren't just insults. They were confirmation of the fear already gnawing at her. Maybe she really didn't belong here. Meals in the chow hall became unbearable. Sarah sat alone, pushing food around her tray, while others whispered and laughed at nearby tables. She avoided eye contact, her mind racing with thoughts of home. Her father, a Vietnam veteran who had always believed military service defined honor. Her mother, who cried tears of pride when Sarah enlisted. Her younger sister, who finally looked up to her because she dared to take a harder path. What would they say when she returned home in disgrace? By the end of the third week, the outcome seemed inevitable. Sarah had failed weapons qualification 3 times. Her physical fitness scores were below the minimum. Her tactical knowledge was paper-thin. And the discharge papers, she knew, were already being drafted. She had wanted to prove she was strong. Instead, she had proven at least in the eyes of everyone around her, that she wasn't capable at all. That night, as she lay on her bunk staring at the ceiling, the whispers and muffled laughter of her platoon still lingering in her ears, Sarah felt the crushing weight of humiliation. Every stumble, every failure, every word from the drill sergeant replayed in her mind. At Parris Island, recruits were supposed to be broken down and rebuilt into Marines. But for her, the breaking part never seemed to stop. And so, Private Sarah Mitchell became the failure everyone saw. Routine inspections at Parris Island were nothing unusual. Commanders and high-ranking officers came and went, walking the lines of recruits, nodding at discipline, frowning at mistakes. For most recruits, it was just another chance to keep their boots polished and uniforms tight. But for Private Sarah Mitchell, that day would become the dividing line between failure and destiny. The morning began like countless others. The platoon assembled on the parade ground under the rising sun, rifles at their sides, uniforms damp with sweat from the humid air. Sarah stood in line, head high but stomach twisted into knots. She already knew her record was beyond repair. With discharge papers looming, she figured this inspection would be her last time standing in formation as a Marine recruit. Then he appeared. Commander Adrian Cole, a decorated Navy SEAL officer, walked with quiet authority. Unlike the drill instructors who barked and snapped at recruits, Cole didn't need to raise his voice. His very presence seemed to silence the air. His eyes scanned the rows of young faces with unsettling precision, lingering just long enough to make each recruit feel exposed. When those eyes locked on Sarah Mitchell, she felt as though the ground beneath her shifted. The drill sergeant at her side almost sneered as he gestured toward her. "Sir, that one, Mitchell, is a lost cause. Can't hit a target at 10 feet. She'll be gone before the week is out." Cole said nothing. He simply studied Sarah with an intensity that made her want to shrink back. For a moment, she thought he would pass by like everyone else, accepting the sergeant's word that she was hopeless. Instead, he stepped closer. "You," Cole said evenly. "Mitchell, step forward." Her boots felt like lead, but she obeyed, moving out of formation until she stood alone in front of him. The other recruits watched with barely concealed smirks, anticipating another round of humiliation. Cole didn't berate her. He didn't shout. He simply looked at her as though he already knew something she didn't. Then he reached into the folder tucked under his arm, pulled out a single sheet of paper, folded and sealed in red wax, and handed it to her. "Private Mitchell," he said, "you have new orders. Report to the tactical range in full combat gear." Sarah froze. Around her, murmurs rippled through the ranks. Recruits exchanged glances. What kind of recruit, the platoon failure, was given new orders instead of dismissal? She opened her mouth, but no words came. The seal pressed against her palm, its weight far heavier than paper had any right to be. Cole's gaze didn't waver. "Read it. You'll understand." Her hands shook as she unfolded the paper. The words blurred for a moment, then came into focus. Immediate reassignment. Tactical Range Charlie. Special authorization. Commander Adrian Cole. Her heart skipped. This wasn't discharge. This wasn't the end. It was something else entirely. That evening, Sarah was summoned to a small office near the edge of the base, a building she had never entered before. The room didn't look like the rest of Parris Island. Instead of sterile white walls and standard-issue furniture, the space felt more like a study. Files stacked neatly across the desk, maps tacked to the walls, photographs of unfamiliar training grounds pinned under thumbtacks. Commander Cole sat behind the desk, reading through a file that bore her name. When she stepped inside, he motioned for her to sit. "I prefer to stand, sir," Sarah said stiffly, still clinging to formality. "That wasn't a request," Cole replied calmly. She sat. He closed the file and studied her directly. "Your drill instructors tell me you can't shoot, can't run, can't fight. But your record says otherwise." Sarah blinked. "Sir?" Cole slid a different folder across the desk. Inside were clippings, certificates, and competition photos she had almost forgotten existed. Regional shooting championships, state-level tournaments, first-place trophies in precision rifle and tactical pistol. "These are your scores," Cole continued. "At 17, you were outperforming professionals twice your age. The range officers noted your accuracy under pressure as extraordinary. That's not the record of someone who can't shoot straight. Sarah's breath caught. How do you have these? We've been watching, Cole said simply. From the moment you enlisted, your background flagged our system. You're not ordinary, Mitchell. You have a skill set most people will never touch. So I have only one question. His voice sharpened. Why are you failing here? The words hit like a punch. Sarah stared at the floor, her carefully built excuses crumbling. At last she whispered, Permission to speak freely, sir? Granted. I failed because I was afraid, she admitted. All my life shooting was just a sport. Paper targets, trophies, nothing more. But here they're teaching us to kill, and I realized I was good at it. Too good, it didn't bother me, and that terrified me. So I held back. I made myself small. I let myself fail. Silence filled the room. Cole leaned back in his chair, expression unreadable. Finally he said, That fear is why you're standing here now. The men who enjoy killing are dangerous. The ones who understand its weight, the ones who fear what it can turn them into, those are the ones we need. He opened another file, stamped with classifications Sarah didn't recognize. There are missions you won't read about in newspapers, won't see in history books. Missions that prevent wars before they start. They require precision, intelligence, and restraint. We don't need soldiers who can just pull a trigger. We need people who know when not to. Sarah's pulse pounded in her ears. And you think that's me? I don't think, Cole said. I know. He leaned forward, hands clasped on the desk. So here's the choice. Continue down the path you're on, and you'll be discharged within days. Or accept these orders. Special operations training, beyond what any recruit here will ever see. It won't be easy. You'll be tested harder than you can imagine. But if you succeed, you'll never be the platoon failure again. You'll be something else entirely. Sarah's throat was dry. Her mind screamed to walk away, to protect herself from whatever this was. But deep down, a spark stirred. The part of her that had once taken pride in every shot, every competition, every victory. She looked at the paper in her hands, the red wax seal broken, but its weight still pressing on her palms. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The office was silent except for the faint hum of the overhead light. Sarah sat rigid in her chair, the red-sealed orders resting in her lap like a weight she couldn't quite bear. Commander Adrian Cole leaned back, watching her with the calm intensity of a man who had seen too many truths to be surprised by anything. Finally, he broke the silence. You're not the failure they think you are, Mitchell. But what I need to know is, why are you choosing to look like one? Sarah's throat tightened. She had dreaded this question, yet she knew it was inevitable. There was no hiding anymore. Sir, she began slowly, voice low but steady, I failed because I was afraid. Cole tilted his head, inviting her to continue. When I first came here, I thought I was ready. I'd spent years at the range, years competing, years proving I could shoot better than anyone else my age. But the moment training started, it hit me. Those skills weren't for trophies anymore. They were for combat, for ending lives. Her hands trembled slightly as she clenched them together. And I realized I was good at it. Too good. My shots didn't just land. They cut through the targets with precision, and it didn't bother me. Not even a little. That terrified me, sir. So I shut down. I missed shots on purpose. I stumbled through drills. I made myself into the failure everyone expected, because that felt safer than becoming the kind of person who could take a life without flinching. The confession hung in the air like smoke. Cole studied her for a long moment, his eyes unreadable. Then he leaned forward, resting his forearms on the desk. Mitchell, do you know what separates a weapon from a warrior? Sarah blinked, caught off guard. Sir, a weapon is an instrument. Cold, blind. It does whatever hand wields it demands. A warrior is different. A warrior has the ability to choose. The men who terrify me aren't the ones who shoot well. They're the ones who enjoy it. They kill because it feeds something in them. But you, he gestured toward her with a subtle nod. You're afraid because you don't want to lose your humanity. And that fear tells me you're exactly the kind of person who needs to carry a weapon. Sarah frowned, struggling to reconcile his words. But sir, how can something I fear so much be what I'm meant to do? Cole's expression softened, just slightly. Because the fear you carry isn't weakness, it's conscience. It's the line that will stop you from becoming reckless, from crossing into the darkness that swallows men whole. You're not afraid of failing. You're afraid of succeeding in the wrong way. That makes you more dangerous to the enemy and safer for the people we fight to protect. Cole's words weren't just about Sarah. They reflected a truth that stretched far beyond the walls of that office. How many people in the world sabotage themselves out of fear? Not fear of failure, but fear of success. Fear of the weight that comes with responsibility. In school, in careers, even in relationships, people sometimes shrink from their own potential because deep down they're terrified of what stepping fully into it might demand. Think about the gifted student who deliberately underperforms because standing out makes them a target, or the talented leader who refuses promotion because they fear the consequences of making decisions that affect others. Self-sabotage isn't always about laziness. It's often about the crushing awareness of what we could be and the fear that it might consume us. Sarah Mitchell was living that reality. She wasn't failing because she couldn't. She was failing because she could, because deep down she knew she was exceptional, and she was afraid of where that road might lead. Commander Cole stood and walked toward the window, gazing out at the parade ground where recruits still marched in rigid formation. Mitchell, those men and women out there, they'll be good soldiers. Some of them will even be great, but none of them can do what you can do. You've been given a gift, and gifts come with a burden. The responsibility to use them wisely. He turned back, eyes sharp. Tell me, if you saw an innocent life in danger and you had the skill to save it, would you hold back? Sarah shook her head instinctively. Of course not, sir. Then stop holding back here. You think your talent is only about destruction? But you're wrong. A surgeon's scalpel can take a life, but in the right hands it saves thousands. Your precision, your control, it doesn't have to be about killing. It can be about protecting, about making sure the right target falls so that others don't have to. His words struck something deep within her. For weeks she had only seen her gift as a curse, a dangerous edge she didn't want to sharpen. But what if it could be something else? What if the very skill that scared her could be turned towards shielding others from harm? For the first time since arriving at Parris Island, Sarah felt the faint spark of possibility. She looked down at the folded orders still in her hands, the red wax broken but its weight undeniable. She had treated her talent like a shadow, something to hide, something shameful. But now, through Cole's lens, she began to see it differently. Sir, she said quietly, I don't want to lose myself. Cole nodded once. Then don't. The choice is always yours. But hiding your gift won't protect you. It will only waste what you were given. If you want to honor your family, your country, and yourself, you have to learn how to use it without letting it consume you. The words landed with the weight of a command and the warmth of a lifeline. Sarah sat in silence for a long time, the gears of her mind turning. Slowly, the truth settled in. Her failures weren't weakness. They were fear. And fear, properly understood, wasn't the enemy. It was the compass pointing her toward what mattered most. She met Cole's gaze and gave a sharp nod. For the first time, not in submission, but in determination. That night, as Sarah returned to her barracks, the whispers of her platoon no longer cut as deeply. They still saw her as the failure, the one destined for discharge. But inside, something had shifted. She no longer carried the same shame. Because deep down, she knew what Cole had seen in her. Not a disgrace, not a lost cause, but someone who had been holding back out of fear. Someone who, if she chose to step forward, could become far more than anyone expected. And for the first time, Sarah Mitchell wasn't afraid of her own strength. She was ready to discover what it was for. The night Sarah Mitchell received her classified orders, the barracks felt different. The usual whispers and muffled laughter aimed at her seemed distant, almost irrelevant. Clutched in her hand was a folded sheet of paper, its red wax seal broken, but its meaning seared into her mind. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something no one else around her even knew existed. At dawn, she was escorted to a part of the base she had never seen. Tactical Range Charlie. On the outside, it looked ordinary, just another military building among many. But once she passed through security checkpoints and double-locked steel doors, the illusion of normalcy vanished. Inside, the facility was unlike anything Sarah had imagined. Corridors lined with reinforced walls, doors marked with clearance codes, and training areas that resembled pieces of the outside world. Mock cities, dense forests under artificial light, desert landscapes built indoors with uncanny precision. Everything screamed of preparation for missions that were never meant to be acknowledged. Waiting for her in the main chamber was a tall, composed woman with sharp eyes and an air of authority that didn't need rank insignia to be felt. "Private Mitchell," she said, extending a gloved hand. "I'm Captain Elena Ward. From this moment forward, I'm your instructor. Out there," she gestured toward the mock city beyond the glass wall, "you're a recruit. Here, you're something else. Here, you'll either uncover who you really are, or you'll break trying." Sarah nodded stiffly. "Yes, ma'am." Elena studied her for a long moment, as though weighing her very soul. Then she smiled, faint but genuine. "Good. Let's see what you've been hiding." Sarah's first test began immediately. Ward led her to a weapons table that made the standard-issue rifles of Parris Island look like toys. Precision rifles with advanced optics, sidearms customized for balance, ammunition types she had never even seen. "Pick one," Ward instructed. Sarah hesitated, then reached for a long-range rifle that felt instinctively right in her hands. Ward's eyes narrowed slightly, as if pleased. The trial wasn't about hitting paper targets. Instead, holographic figures flickered to life in the mock city beyond, some marked as hostile, others as civilians. The task: engage the threats, protect the innocents, and adapt as scenarios shifted in seconds. Her pulse pounded, but as she raised the rifle, something within her clicked. She wasn't the trembling recruit who had fumbled through drills. She was the competitor who had once thrived under pressure. Shot after shot rang out, each finding its mark with surgical precision. More importantly, when a civilian figure darted into her scope, she held fire, adjusting swiftly, recalibrating. Her judgment proved as sharp as her aim. By the end of the exercise, Sarah hadn't missed a single hostile target and hadn't harmed a single civilian. Ward's voice broke the silence. "Outstanding. Harper," she caught herself, then corrected. "Commander Cole was right about you." For Sarah, the praise was both a shock and a relief. For weeks, she had been branded a failure. Now, under Ward's scrutiny, she was finally being seen for what she was capable of. But the program wasn't only about marksmanship. Ward pushed Sarah into environments that tested body, mind, and soul. She was dropped into simulated night raids, forced to navigate pitch-black corridors with only instinct and limited gear. She was tasked with interrogations, where she had to read body language, detect lies, and make life-or-death decisions with fragments of information. In one particularly brutal exercise, Sarah was made to run obstacle courses until her legs gave out, then immediately handed a weapon and told to engage precision targets at 500 meters. Muscles screaming, vision blurred, she still found the discipline to steady her breathing, align the sights, and fire true. Ward never raised her voice. Her authority came from expectation, not intimidation. Every time Sarah wanted to quit, Ward's calm stare pushed her further. "Limits," she said once, as Sarah collapsed from exhaustion, "are illusions. Out there, illusions get people killed. Here, you'll learn to break them before they break you." Day after day, Sarah transformed. The humiliation of Parris Island began to fade, replaced by a quiet, unshakable resolve. The platoon had seen her as a joke. Here, under Ward, she was being reforged. But the hardest battle wasn't with the rifle or her body. It was with her mind. Each night, Sarah wrestled with the same fear, that her skill made her dangerous, that embracing it meant losing herself. Ward sensed it. One evening, after an especially grueling exercise, she spoke plainly. "Mitchell, you think your gift is a curse, but tell me, who do you want holding that rifle when a family's life depends on it? The recruit who's just adequate, or the one who's exceptional, who knows the weight of every shot she takes?" The words struck Sarah harder than any physical test. For the first time, she began to see her abilities not as a threat, but as a responsibility. By the end of her first week in the hidden program, Sarah stood on the rooftop of the mock city, rifle slung across her back, sweat stinging her eyes. She looked out over the sprawling training ground, breathing hard, body aching, but spirit unbroken. She knew now the world would never know her victories. The missions ahead would never be sung in parades or etched on monuments. They would exist only in silence, in the lives saved because she had chosen to step fully into who she was. Captain Elena Ward approached, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "This is just the beginning. You've proven you have talent. Now we'll teach you how to turn it into purpose." Sarah nodded, gripping the edge of her rifle strap. For the first time since she'd arrived at Parris Island, she no longer felt like the failure everyone saw. She felt like someone standing at the edge of a new identity, one forged in shadows, guided by conscience, and destined for missions no one would ever acknowledge. And deep inside, she made herself a silent promise. She would never again hide from her own strength. Training inside the hidden program shifted after Sarah Mitchell proved her technical skill. In the beginning, the focus had been marksmanship, endurance, tactics, skills measurable in numbers and scores. But Captain Elena Ward soon made it clear that the true test wasn't about how fast Sarah could run or how precise her shots were. It was about restraint. "Anyone can pull a trigger," Ward told her one morning as they stood overlooking the mock city. "The question is, should you?" That's where warriors are separated from weapons. From that point forward, Sarah's challenges became less about accuracy and more about judgment. Scenarios were built to deceive her. Hostile figures disguised as civilians, civilians holding objects that looked like weapons, split-second dilemmas where the wrong choice meant simulated casualties. At first, Sarah hesitated too long, her uncertainty costing imaginary lives. Other times, she fired too quickly, only to realize she had chosen the wrong target. Each mistake left her shaken, but Ward never shouted. She simply walked beside Sarah afterward, her voice calm but firm. "Victory isn't about eliminating threats. It's about protecting what matters. If you can't tell the difference, you're not ready." Days turned into weeks, and Sarah's growth became visible. Her breathing slowed under pressure. Her eyes scanned not just for danger, but for context. She learned to read posture, intent, and the subtle cues that separated a true threat from an innocent bystander caught in chaos. Ward often gave her impossible scenarios where any choice meant loss. One evening, Sarah emerged from such an exercise frustrated and angry. "There was no right decision, ma'am," she protested. Ward's reply was steady. "Then you've just learned the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes victory isn't about winning. It's about losing less and making peace with that." The words stung, but Sarah understood. Restraint was not weakness. It was the highest form of discipline. One night after an exhausting set of trials, Ward sat with Sarah in the empty training hall. The lights glowed dim, casting long shadows across the mock urban streets. "Sarah," Ward said softly, "the greatest victories you'll achieve are the ones no one will ever know about. There won't be medals. There won't be applause. In fact, if we succeed, history won't even record that the battle existed." She looked Sarah in the eye, her voice carrying both pride and sorrow. "The best operations are invisible. The finest warriors are the ones who prevent wars rather than fight them. Remember that, because in this work, recognition can never be your reward." Those words carved themselves into Sarah's heart. For so long, she had equated worth with proof. Scores, ranks, achievements. Now she was being taught that true worth came from silence, from victories measured not in glory, but in the absence of tragedy. For the first time, Sarah stopped running from the part of herself she feared most. Her talent with a rifle, her ability to stay calm under fire, her instinct for precision, they weren't curses. They were tools. And like any tool, their morality came not from their existence, but from the hand that wielded them. Her fear didn't vanish, but it transformed. It became the very thing that anchored her. Each time she steadied her sights, she asked herself, not only can I take this shot, but should I? That hesitation, once crippling, now became her strength. She no longer dreaded her abilities. She respected them, and in that respect, she found control. By the end of her first month under ward, Sarah walked differently. Her shoulders no longer slumped with shame. Her eyes no longer darted with self-doubt. She carried herself with quiet certainty, not arrogance, but the calm of someone who understood both her power and its limits. One evening, after completing a particularly difficult scenario without a single misstep, Ward placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've learned the hardest truth, Mitchell. Power isn't defined by what you can destroy. It's defined by what you choose to protect." Sarah nodded, a faint smile breaking through the fatigue. For the first time since she'd arrived at Parris Island, she no longer felt like the girl who had failed. She felt like someone reborn, sculpted not by humiliation, but by discipline. She understood now that her greatest battles would never be known, her victories never celebrated. And strangely, she found peace in that, because in silence, she had found purpose, and in fear, she had found strength. Sarah Mitchell's journey reminds us that sometimes the greatest battles are not fought on distant battlefields, but within ourselves. She learned that true strength is not the absence of fear, it is the courage to face it, to control it, and to use it for something greater than personal glory. Captain Ward's words echo beyond the walls of a secret training ground. The greatest victories are the ones no one knows about. In today's world, that lesson feels especially powerful. Many of us carry hidden talents, gifts we may even be afraid of. Some people avoid responsibility because they fear the weight of expectation. Others hold back because success might demand too much of them. Yet as Sarah discovered, restraint, conscience, and the ability to choose wisely are what transforms skill into purpose. Perhaps that is true in our daily lives as well. Victory is not always a promotion, a medal, or applause. Sometimes it's the quiet choice to do the right thing when no one is watching. Sometimes it's guiding a family, serving a community, or preventing harm before it happens. Now I want to hear from you. Do you believe fear can become a source of strength? Have you ever held back your own potential because you worried about what it might mean? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for listening to this story. If it touched you, please like, subscribe, and join us for more stories that uncover hidden truths and timeless lessons. Because in the end, the question is not whether we are strong enough to fight, but whether we are wise enough to know what is worth fighting for.